Ladies and gentlemen, Seahawks fans of all ages, welcome back to the 12 Talk podcast. I'm trying to be cheery, but it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of guy. I like to feel like I'm, quite a positive, upbeat fella, but I think we're all in that sort of vein today. So join us, share your misery. I'm pretty sure there's a song in there somewhere. So my name's Josh. This, I'm pointing the right way, boom, is my co-host, my podcast partner in crime, Mitch. Mitch, how you doing, dude?
Yeah, good. Unfortunately, I am tired and disappointed rather than being tired and buoyed. Yeah. Less said there, the better. This is a clean pod, Josh. Yeah, no, usually if we stay up late for a primetime game and we win that game, you don't feel anywhere near as tired. But yeah, I got to say I feel exhausted for that reason.
Yeah, not ideal. So today we are going to be going over yesterday's game. So this is two pods in 2 days, Mitch. Who do we think we are? We'll be going over, let's say, yesterday's game. For us, this morning's game, for those of us that woke up at 1 a.m. and stayed up till 4:30, the Seahawks lost to the 49ers. We will be taking your questions. We have questions from the Discord, our Discord member musings. And speaking of the Discord, our guest today, a returning guest, Mr. Garry Swain, upstanding member of our Discord and regular contributor in the chat. So those of you who don't know who Garry is, he was on the pod with Mitch reviewing the Lions game. It was absolutely fantastic. One of the first things I messaged Mitch afterwards was Garry smashed it. And obviously Yoda smashed it as well, but we know what he does. So before we get into all this, we are obviously the official podcast of the UK Seahawkers. If you're not a member and you'd like to join, by all means, head on over to their Facebook page. You can join from £12 for an individual or £20 for a family membership for a maximum of 4. You get access to social events. This one's next year is in Glasgow. So anyone knows a good bar in Glasgow, let us know. Mitch and I will be there. You get 10% off at the club shop or the pro shop when you're in Seattle. Chance to win field passes on game day, members only competitions, and annual selection of goodies, which include a fantastic wristband, our throwback patch, which I've just found again. I need to put on my jacket before I go to Wembley next week, your membership card, and this year you're an RFD card. So again, you can pay via PayPal. It's a fantastic group of people. Join the community with them. And just to shout out to one of our regulars, Jonas, member of the German Seahawkers. I think, still a member of the German Seahawkers. I need to check my membership. You can join them for €15. It's approximately £12.68 or $16.06. Check out their website, germanseahawkers.com. Hit it through Google Translate, and you are away. With that, Mitch, shall we hit the theme music and bring Garry in?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Mr. Garry Swain, back to the podcast. How are you doing, Garry?
Thanks for inviting me on again, guys. Pleasure to be here. Not quite in the circumstances we were hoping, but here we are.
This is going to be one of those pods for all of us, I feel, where we try and maintain so much positivity, but then when we get to our 12 talking points, based on the title, the subheadings of them, that may wane slightly. Due to my late night, my feelings of regret for staying up for that game and my hard day at work, I'll be drinking rum during the evening. So I apologise now. We are a family-friendly pod, and I will try not to swear. I'll try not to get too heated. But with that, shall we just start talking about the game?
Yes.
Yeah. Here we go. So let's do a quick recap of the game. Seahawks fell 24-36 to our bitter NFC West rivals, the San Francisco 49ers. And the scores, for those who didn't watch it or can't remember, are as follows. First quarter, there was only one field goal that was kicked by the off-the-street field goal kicker from the 49ers, Matthew Wright. Second quarter, things didn't go great, with Deebo Samuel snagging a 76-yard touchdown. Great for one of my fantasy teams, rubbish for the Seahawks. Then we had another 2 field goals from Wright, and then we managed to get one right at the death of the half from Jason Myers, which I know, having been on our Twitter last night, really annoyed a lot of people. Just before we go any further, how did you feel about that 3-point sort of at the end? Do you think we should have gone for more, or were you happy just to get a score on the board? Go on, Gary, you can start. You are our honoured guest.
Honestly, points on the board. We'd struggled, so put points on the board. I'd rather come away with 3 points than nothing, because it gives totally changes the dynamic for half time. Okay, we're back in. We've erased the goose egg. Okay, let's keep going. Whereas if you go in and you've gone for the touchdown and then you've fouled, it's deflating. I think it's deflating. It's great if you score. It's the reverse. It's uplifting, but you've got to balance it. I'd rather put the points on the board. Move on.
Gary, I'm going to ask you a question. If this was our first game against the Niners next season, right? So this whole unit has had an extra season under Mike Mack and Ryan Grubb, and we're in the exact same situation, but the offense are more comfortable with Grubb. Do you still think they kick, or do you think they're a bit more high conviction and go for the jugular? And do you think that the three, what I'm essentially asking you is, do you think they've opted for that because there is a level of not quite being fully confident in, ourselves?
I think definitely, because obviously, as we've said, this coaching staff is new, the schemes are new, everything's new, everybody's getting used to one another. It's only the 6th game. We've been struggling in some games throughout the game. Sometimes it's periods. So for me, it was really important that they put something on the board. So I think that's why they did that. Next year, very good question. I would have to see how they were playing to answer that. Because again, if they're still struggling to get consistent drives going, then I still think just get the points. If you've been moving the ball consistently in games prior, then yeah, maybe you could take that opportunity, that risk. But yeah, at the moment they're certainly no. I'm more than happy to take the points.
Fair enough. And
No.
I think there. Sorry, Josh.
No. You carry on. Go.
I was just going to say that it is worth mentioning that not only was that 4 downs to punch the ball in from, what was it, half a yard? Started off as half a yard. I think we went back slightly.
Yeah.
Half a yard. But there was also not enough time on the board to fail with a run because we had no timeout.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
you had to attempt the pass and fail, or attempt the pass and convert. So
yeah,
we've been really good in the red zone when we can use our running backs. Take away the running backs in the red zone, there haven't been an awful lot of red zone thrown touchdowns. So our go-to finish off the drive mechanic was removed, and the time was removed. So kicking it in those circumstances on the last attempt we had did make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I very much had this argument whilst manning our X account last night, where there were so many people just going off on the fact that we should have gone for points. What's 3 points compared to nothing is nothing. in their eyes. I look at it very much from a coaching standpoint, a morale standpoint. If you go into the half with 0 goose eggs on the board, when you could have come away with something, that is so demoralizing for a team. I don't care what anyone says, 3 points, 7 points, 5 points, doesn't matter. If you go in with nothing to show for your efforts, you're going to go in at halftime, sit in that locker room and think, what was the point? Why do we even bother? If you can at least come away with 3, you've started that ticker going.
Yeah.
And you see it in other sports where they will kick for goal just to keep the scorecard moving on. And I think that's that. I personally think it was the right option. I just wanted to get your take on that because there was a lot of back and forth over X on that last night. So third quarter, we came out and actually won the quarter. Mainly thanks to a massive kick return, but George Kittle, we'll get on to him later, scoring a touchdown for San Fran. And then Laviska Shenault with his epic, was it 102-yard kick return? Whatever it was huge. And then he had to go onto the sideline and have oxygen and proceed to spew all over. Whether that was watching the team play or just because he was so tired, I don't know. And then we had the TD run in from Ken Walker from 2 yards after Geno tried his that was the play after Geno tried his QB sneak, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that went well. So the fourth quarter, it was that boy Kittle again, and they didn't convert the 2-point conversion. Geno managed to find Tyler Lockett, and then Kyle Juszczyk, a fullback, got in the end zone. He just seems that there's the 2 names that we've mentioned mainly here, Kittle and Juszczyk, always seem to have big games against us. And it vexes me so much. So that left the score 24-36, unless my bleary eyes were tired and I've got all the maths wrong and I've done everything wrong there. Please feel free to correct me. Thank you, everyone, for joining, by the way, as well. Whether you're on X or you're on YouTube, by all means, you can jump in on the comments. We've got a lot of guys in there and there'll be a lot of back and forth. If you've got a question, let us know. Mitch will be manning all your comments and we'll put them up on the screen later. We've got our Discord member musings at the end of this as well. So any really pertinent questions, if they're not answered during the pod, we'll do it later. But before we move on, I would very much like to just have a quick message from our charity partner, the Robbing Cancer Trust. So please bear with us and we'll be back in less than a minute.
I want to take a minute just to introduce you our charity partner for the pod, the Robbing Cancer Trust. The Robbing Cancer Trust is the UK's germ cell cancer community. For those who don't know what germ cell cancer is, that is testicular and ovarian cancer. And the RCT was set up following the family tragedy, which sadly saw them lose their son and brother to germ cell cancer. Germ cell cancer is something that can affect anyone at any time. And the RCT, Robbing Cancer Trust, do a fantastic job creating awareness through the various campaigns like Talking Bollocks and Not Overreacting. If you or a member of your family have been affected or think you may be affected by it, please visit their website, therobbingcancertrust.org, to see how you can spot the signs, how you can manage it, and become part of the community. And if you'd like to help fundraise or give anything to them, by all means, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic is what I mean to say there for my rubbish video editing skills. Cut that off. This is why we do most of the pods live, because my video editing is rubbish. But yeah, the RCT, we are still supporting them. We'll be supporting them for a long time. We mentioned it yesterday. They are running a charity event that anyone can join in the month of November. It's the Big Ballsy Run. You've probably seen it on our socials. I've just said, have you got the bollocks for it? Only swear word I'll say, but it's an English one, so it doesn't matter. You can pick to run or walk 10, 50 or 100k in a month. Entry is all you've got to pay. It's £20 for the UK, 26 for Europe, and 28 for anyone outside Europe. Get your walking shoes on, go out with your mates, help raise money for a good cause, and get this fantastic medal at the end. I am signing up this weekend. I am going to be probably taking my daughter for a lot of walks in November, so she'll either hate me or love me. But big shout out to Robbing Cancer Trust, and all of your support is fantastic for them as well. With that, let's go on to the main part of this pod. let's get on to our 12 talking points. And as always, because Garry is our esteemed guest, you can go first, my friend. Now, we're going with a slightly different format with this because we want to make sure you guys can all have your say at the end as well. So we're going to have 4 points each. 2 will be observations and 2 will be discussion points. With those discussion points, if you want to chime in the chat, let us know. Mitch is monitoring that and he can put things up as well. Although I'm sorry, Mitch, it may cover your beautiful face. Next time, I'll be the man at the bottom.
That's for the good of everyone watching anyway. Let's not make apologies for it.
All right, Chewbacca. Right. So here we go. Garry, your first talking point.
Yeah, you've heard me say it previously. I'm going to keep saying it. And that's why I sound like a broken record. Patience, patience, patience. It takes time to build something. It does not happen overnight and won't be plain sailing. There will be trials and tribulations, and these will define the players and coaches. The way my analogy, I thought about this was like, if you purchased a house and you looked at it and went, oh, looks fine. You didn't do a survey on it. You went and bought the house. You then move in. And then like a few months later, you start finding things wrong with the house because you didn't do a survey. This is a bit like what's going on with the new coaches. They've come in, they've inherited a team, and they've got this building, and now they've got, because I think we all agreed that things were broken and needed to be fixed, which is why we brought the coaches in to come and fix it, which I think they're doing, but it takes time.
Yeah, 100%. Also, have you been to my house? I had a survey, but that's still exactly what I'm going through at the moment. I've been here 5 years. I'll take this one first, Garry. I think you and I have spoken at length over Discord, in the comments here. We've said it on this. There are a lot of fans and other broadcasters out there who I think are expecting like instant wins, like, oh, we've got this defensive mastermind and this new exciting coach and rah, rah, rah. We're going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to go as far as possible. I said it yesterday. Temper your expectations. Successful teams are not built like that. When you have to burn something down to bring it back up, it takes time. Luckily, Mike Mack hasn't had to burn it down totally, but he's still working with a roster he's inherited. He's had to bring in free agents, which Mitch will talk about later, to try and fill those gaps to work his scheme. I am trying to be as patient as possible. Not always my forte, but from a coach's point of view, I completely understand what's happening here, and you can see the dejection in Mike Mack's face because I think he expects it to go quicker, but it's not going to happen. It is a building process. I think it may have been Bryce, who put a comment up there about this. But Mitch, I'll let you say your bit, and then it might be worth putting Bryce's comment up.
Yeah, I do agree with this. I mean, it was never going to be like 15-2 or 12-5. Well, I mean, maybe 12-5 was obtainable after the 3-0 start, but that wasn't what we were saying before a ball was thrown or kicked, that wasn't what we thought. So if you looked at the average prediction for our season, we're probably on track for it. So how can we be disappointed when we're on track for what we thought was going to happen? We're only disappointed by the metric that was the first 3 games, because that set a projection that we hadn't expected. Now we've fallen to where we thought we'd be. We're only disappointed by that projection, and also, I think we also predicted, as well as the record being what we look like we're on track for, we also predicted an undulating, unpredictable, landscape.
What a word! Undulating.
Well, yeah,
you're one of the month calendars coming in handy.
But you see what I mean? Like, it was never going to be, if you mark down all the games that you thought we were going to win, like the Giants, and then you mark down the ones you thought we were going to lose or get blown out by, it's not going to work like that, and it's certainly not going to work like that when we've had a complete overhaul. So I'm not overly disappointed there. What I am disappointed by is the same old players having the same old free run in our backyard, and similar infuriating issues popping up game after game. There's a few things I would have hoped we'd have stamped out by now. So those are the things, but they're niggles. They're not things that have got me, smashing things, and it's not that bad.
It's not, but
It's not.
if you listen to Seahawks Twitter, then it is the end of the world. And this is something I will harp on all the time. Like Gary, I don't want to take this from you, because I think you and anyone who watches or listens to this pod or is in our Discord will know Gary has some really poignant things to say, and they're always really clearly thought out. So I'm all on board with this. This is just a temper your expectations, wind it back a bit. Just let's see how this season goes. We've said it already. We expected a few wins, but we're now being shown that it's going to be a building process. Let it be gradual. Gary, let's go on to your next point, my friend, before we take up too much time from your ability to put all these up. Oh, the feeling of most Seahawks fans after yesterday.
Indeed. And I have to get this off my chest. This is a bit of a bone of contention for me, and one that I am really disappointed with. Not in the team. I'm not disappointed in the team. I'm disappointed in some of the fans who are already looking to write off the coaching staff, despite these same fans predicting a double-digit win season and how great a hire Mike McDonald is just a few months ago. Now their expectations have not been met. It's not looking good, and memories of Jim Moira are returning. Maybe these fans, sorry, I needed to put it in inverted commas, need to be realistic in their predictions and expectations, and perhaps look at themselves rather than blaming the coaching staff for failing them. You made those predictions and had those expectations, own them. Couch coaching is easy. The real thing is not, and it takes time. Sitting where we sit and making these bold predictions and statements and thinking that we're going to be going to the playoffs or all this sort of thing, for me, was totally unrealistic. And I think that's why there's a huge sort of backlash at the moment from a lot of fans, because their expectations are up here and unrealistic. Just, I don't get it. How many first-time coaches have been successful in their first season? I mean, as a sort of like a, what's the word I'm looking for? As a parallel sort of like over here, you had Alex Ferguson, the most successful Premiership manager ever. Did he start well? No, he did not. They were calling for him to be sacked. I think it took him three years before they won a trophy. And then look what happened. Most successful coach in the Premiership history. He's got 13 titles. Did it happen overnight? No. It takes time. I just wish people would realise that. It drives me mad. It really does.
Can we, for our American viewers who don't know Alex Ferguson, one of the greatest, I'm not a Man U fan, but one of the greatest football managers of all time, managed Man United for, was it 15, 20 years? A long time.
Cool.
To put into perspective,
yeah,
the success he had and when he was most successful, they won the treble, the Premiership, FA Cup, and then the European Champions League with a team of players that majority were youth players that he brought in and built a team with. So if we use that as a blueprint for what can happen here, he came on board with the team. They weren't the players he needed or wanted. But then if he can then take the players that he wants, a youth player, a young player, let's say someone he drafts, molds them into the player he wants, success will come. And that's the same thing that hopefully will happen here. So I'm with you on that. Like I said, I was in charge of our X account last night, which is why anyone who looked at the tweets or posts, whatever they're called now, will probably notice they were slightly more sarcastic and grumpy than usual. That was A, the early morning, B, the result, and C, the absolute dread of waking up with my 4-year-old in the morning. So I completely agree with you there, Gary. Go on, Mitch.
Yeah, I would just make the point that there's very little Mike Mac DNA on, running through this this roster. He's having to deal with a lot of square pegs and round holes. Pretty sure a round peg does actually go into a square hole, but yeah, square pegs in round holes.
Well, that's a conundrum.
Yeah, I just think that they really do need time. The coaches need time. Mike Mack needs time to build a depth on this roster behind the starters. The starters need to be starting quality. They need to be the right scheme fit, and everyone behind them needs to be the right quality for a starter or a scheme fit or both. We don't have that running through this roster. There's a few rooms on this roster where I think they are. Wide receiver, I think, fine. Running back, fine. But when you start looking at the D line, when you start looking at the O line, when you start looking at the defensive backs, when you start looking at, when you really start going through it, there's not an awful lot of depth there that is either the right level of quality or a proper scheme fit for what he's trying to do, which means when players go down or come out of the game, it's much harder for him to implement what he wants to implement. So give him a couple of drafts. Get a few 6th round draft picks, 5th round draft picks that may not be the talent of the century, but they can do the things he wants them to do when called upon. Get them coached up from ground zero. Then we'll start having a roster that can compete and do and sort of set the tone that he wants to set in the way that he wants to play the game. So that's where I am. I am disappointed with the result. I'm not disappointed in the team. I think there's a really good thing that Garry said, because I feel like everyone's kind of got a bit of an uphill task the first half of the season to bed in. Having the 49ers come and visit so early on, it looked ominous, honestly, and we weren't blown out. It was more competitive than it looked like it was going to be. So I'm not disappointed.
Surprised me the most. The fact that we as Seahawks fans, some of us that have been Seahawks fans for longer than others, Garry, I'm looking at you, longer than me, longer than Mitch. We've seen what a desolate franchise looks like.
Yeah.
We saw how awful it was, even with some great players on the roster. We then had the Mike Holmgren era, which took us to a Super Bowl. Then we had was it Holmgren? Then who was it after that? Was it Pete Carroll straight after Holmgren? It was, wasn't it?
No, it's
was it Jim Mora first?
Yeah, Jim Mora.
Sorry, I'm blaming Rum. Yeah, Jim Mora. Then obviously we had the Pete Carroll era, which brought us success, but that wasn't an instant success. There was a lot of question marks about Carroll to start with. So this is very much the exact same thing. Don't get too caught up on the success we've had historically. Watch what we do now to build and get on board with the team. Let's just get on to the next. The next two are your observations, Garry. So Mitch and I will just let you wax lyrical.
Cheers. Roster. I think Mitch touched on it there as well. Mike McDonald's inherited a roster. It's not a roster that he's built. This has been put together by John Schneider and Pete Carroll. And as Mitch so aptly said, it's trying to fit square pegs into round holes sometimes. Not everywhere. I mean, some of the players are going to be, what Mike can work with and fit his scheme, but others aren't. So we need to take that into account as well. We've also had injuries. That's going to affect you. I mean, the number of injuries that we've had as well. I didn't expect that many so early, to be perfectly honest. So that's kind of knocked us back as well. So again, it takes time, and it's a bit of a sort of like trial and error with drafting, as we all know. I mean, we've got so many experts, who tell us who we need to, to pick, and then, so many of them don't turn out to be so great. Hey, I have to say, back in the day, I was our draft expert when we had. This is before the internet, we had a magazine, a Seahawks magazine called Seattlite, and I was the draft expert, and I had no film to work with at all.
Look at this. We're uncovering layers to here, Garry, as well. So anyone that thinks he doesn't know, he's just a random guest. He's not. He knows his stuff. The roster. I mean, what we'll do, Gary, after your section, we'll bring up some of the comments that have been sort of thrown in here because they're very apt. We'll go to your last sort of observation here as well.
Yeah, frustration. I found that a bit worrisome yesterday. There was a few players who were showing their frustration, and if you listen to Mac in his press conferences, he's always talking about poise. We need to be poised. So it was a bit worrisome seeing that there was a few players that were obviously frustrated and they were showing it. And I just found that a little bit not quite so sure. That didn't come across well to me. You're trying to move forward. You're trying to build a team, trying to bring a team together, and there was people sort of like looked like they were throwing their toys out the pram a bit. And we need a bit more from some people. I just think what we need is poise, as Mike said, and also just calm. Just look, this is the situation as it is. This is the game. Blah blah blah. As Bill Belichick was always saying, just do your job. Do your job. Trust in the process.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, just before we move on to sort of the next few, this will be slightly longer pod than usual because there's a lot to talk about. Let's just go to some of the comments. I'll start with Bryce. So Bryce Coots from Hawks on Rundown. I've done a massive soul searching and I feel it's a 3-year reset, and John Schneider has massively misjudged a lot of players on this roster.
I always thought in my head when Mike got the job, for me, it was a 2 to 3 year to see where we were. It's going to take 2 to 3 years, I thought, for him to turn it around. And unlike a lot of people, I didn't think, oh, right, yeah, we're going to be going to the playoffs this year because we've got a defensive genius coming in. He's going to fix all our problems immediately. All the players we got, they're really good players. This team has struggled for the last couple of years. It's not something that's recent. It's going to take time. And I agree with Bryce.
I think Lauren had a good one in here as well. So Gary, spot on. And it was said yesterday, Pete and John made over 100 transactions in the first year they came in, trying to find the players to fit the system. We haven't done that at the moment. So
Nope.
that sort of gives you the scope and the span of sort of where we are and sort of the changes that need to happen. So all over that one. Bryce again. Still a Pete Carroll and John Schneider team. It's not a Mike McDonald team yet. And who else have we got? Thank you so much, everyone, putting these comments in. You make it extremely hard for us. Mitch, you're supposed to be on these.
Well, you're talking and you're pulling them up.
Fair enough. That's fine.
You're already on it.
Right. Jonas is back in. If the Seahawks play to their current potential, they can beat the Niners. San Fran has peaked. Oh, well, you might enjoy one of Mitch's talking points later. And here we go, Jonas again. In the first season in 2010, Pete went 4-2 to start, only to go 7-9 on the season. Rome wasn't built in a day. Yeah.
Agreed, Jonas.
Perfect.
In my defense, by the way, about the comments, I was busy changing Gary's title. to the 1929 Seattle.
Completely excused.
Thanks.
Completely excused.
Because our franchise existed 100 years ago, obviously.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get on to the next sort of talking points. I've got a few. I've got 4. Then we'll go on to Mitch's 4. So, firstly, those you may see it already. Our 5th talking point: tight ends are our kryptonite. And this is just an observation for me. George Kittle does it every single time. Mitch said it on the pod yesterday. Mitch said that if we allow George Kittle to play, then he'll destroy us. And weirdly enough, we allowed him to play, and he got 2 touchdowns. Tight ends, things over the middle, the short and intermediate routes over the middle. I still don't get why we can't do it. It literally starts from the D line not being able to take away the run, And then that what should be the middle linebacker responsibility or a strong safety coming in to fill that gap, we just can't seem to stop it. And it's a bone of contention, even with sort of your Ken Nortons as defensive coordinator. It can't be stopped, and it's something that needs to be addressed. It's something that I think, unfortunately, has become part of our DNA, and it's the worst part of our DNA, and teams target it. Hopefully, if we play more nickel, dime, we'll be able to cover those areas, but who knows? That was my observation. My next talking point, and this will get some comments going. Time to talk about Geno. And I'm just going to preface this with a lot of the conversations I've had on X. A lot of people are placing the blame firmly on Geno. And yesterday it wasn't great, but also yesterday, Bosa had 14 QB pressures by himself. That doesn't even account for the rest of the team that were in Geno's face. So when the incompletions are there, the turnovers happen, the interceptions, a lot of that, some of it can be attributed to Geno trying to throw it into double coverage, as Bryce said in our Discord last night. Some of it can be attributed to the fact that Geno has no time to throw. I posted something on our Insta earlier, which was DK on the headset to Grubb saying, "Throw it past the effing sticks." Sorry, it was a bit more polite. It was, "Please, can we throw it past the effing sticks?" But in order for that to happen, Geno needs time in a pocket to let routes develop, and that isn't happening. The blame here, where everyone's trying to talk about Geno, is yes, Geno hasn't been playing amazing, but it goes Grubb play calling. These aren't necessarily in order. O-line play, the routes being run because DK's route that was run for the interception, he changed his route for some bizarre reason, and Geno threw to try and give him the ball, but it was undercut. That's it. And Geno, unfortunately, has been making some mental errors. We saw it yesterday with him banging the tablet against his head, where he's not happy. I don't want to hear at the moment, trade away Geno, trade away DK, burn it all down, because Geno is a serviceable quarterback. The issue is deeper than just Geno. Gentlemen, what would you like to talk about with regards to Geno? Go on, Gary. As the guest, you can go first.
I think yesterday was the worst game I've seen Geno play in a long time. And I think there's various reasons for that. The O-line has struggled all season. Obviously, it's a new system. As you just said, you've got routes that aren't being run correctly. So that's putting him under pressure. But he is, I think, I agree with you. I would say he's more than a serviceable quarterback. I think he is a good quarterback. Just need to give the system time, and obviously Geno time, to take that on board, get used to playing it, and the wide receivers and everybody else. It's not, you just can't place it on one person. It's not just one person, as you said, Josh. It's a whole layer of various issues that will come together. Trust me. But it's going to take time.
Bryce has put a comment in here in the chat saying, "I think what was shown yesterday is Geno is a good QB, but not the QB who can win the big game versus a good opponent at a critical time. He doesn't have a signature win and hasn't for 3 years. He's had some fourth quarter wins where he's managed to bring us through." I genuinely think that it's bad results bring a different mindset for fans, for players, everyone. But let's just remember that Geno is now a starting QB in the league. He's fought through a lot of adversity, so we know he can play. I think everyone has this such a short memory when it comes to being a sports fan, where one week we sing someone's praises, saying they are the best player in the world. Oh my God, like look at DK, where it's like, oh, he's an elite receiver. He's had 3 100-yard games. He's got to break the Seahawks record for a season. Geno, he won us that game in the 4th, and then he has a bad game against a good opposition where the whole franchise is in a little bit of disarray with new coaching staff, and we're still trying to piece it together. I wouldn't say it's all his fault. I wouldn't say he's not the right QB. I think he is the right QB, but I think he needs protection. He needs to have the guidance from the offensive coordinator, and he needs his receivers to be able to give him the routes or catch balls that are contested. That's my opinion. Go on, Mitch. Say your bit. Okay. I'm going to rattle through mine in a minute.
I'm going to answer this about Geno by not talking about Geno. Watch this. So imagine we draft, right? We trade up this year. We go and get our guy. We go. Maybe we trade Geno away, or maybe we plan on having Geno play a year with, having the new rookie behind him for one or 2 years, right? Maybe we do that. I wouldn't want to put a rookie QB behind our O-line right now.
God. Could you imagine?
I've seen too many first-round pick quarterbacks in the last 2 or 3 years end up looking like a bust because they've been sacked 50 times in a season. Look at Bryce Young right now.
Yeah.
Like, and I know he can't see over that O-line either, so that's even worse. But I wouldn't want to put a rookie QB behind our O-line right now, which means while we're rebuilding this team, I'm quite happy to have a veteran doing the best he can, completing the highest percentage he can, and having that veteran savvy there. I'm more than happy for that to be our situation while we're building. However, I'll caveat that by saying I hope it's not long until we feel comfortable drafting a QB.
Yeah, agreed.
If we have
John Schneider wants to anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'd say about Geno. And maybe that speaks to the fact that Geno hasn't got a good set of circumstances to be able to shine right now. That's what I would say. We've got to pull that one up. I've got to pull that one up.
Go on.
Because he agrees with me, really. So you put me in charge of this. I'm only going to bring up the ones where people agree with me.
But yeah, so Bryce says 100% agree, Mitch. They need to fix the O-line first before getting the next franchise QB. Yes. We mentioned it. I think everyone talks about the O-line. I'm just going to make a quick observation now about special teams. We spoke about D. Williams and thought he, as a specialist returner, which is why he was on the roster, would be the answer. I am going to say, and I don't like bad mouthing professional sportsmen because they've got further than I did in my sporting career. He needs to be off the team now. I'm sorry, I don't care if he can play wide receiver, if he can play cornerback. That is going to be in a pinch, and you can pull someone from the practice squad for that. He has let too many balls fly over his head, thinking, "Oh, it's going to go dead." And what happens? Oh, it gets down on the 2-yard line, which backs us right the way up. It has become such a detriment. And conversely to that, people like Chenault, who took that ball to the house yesterday, fantastic. But I think there's some tweaking that needs to be done there. I can't keep watching someone like D. Williams, who's brought in for one reason and one reason alone, let's face it, whether he's got different positions he can play, keep doing what he's doing, because it's ruining our chances when we're having to mount 97-yard drives to score a touchdown because he refuses to catch a ball or back up and run with the ball or call a fair catch and luckily get away with it. Whereas we all know yesterday, having seen the footage, shouldn't have done that. Should have been a 49ers ball. I'm going to put it out there. It was said by the the team in New York. They didn't have the same video. That's subpar NFL play.
Can I just come in here?
These are my observations. Go on.
No, I know, but I just have to say it. So when a receiver lets the ball fly over their head like that and hopes that the ball takes a kind bounce and goes out or into the end zone or whatnot, you have to remember that if they get into position and they're confident they can catch it, and they raise their hand, call a fair catch, and catch it, then we start our drive from that point, right? So if they catch it there at the 5-yard line, that's where we're starting. If the ball bounces and the other team get it, that's where we start. Maybe they get an extra yard, 2 yards, by picking the ball up there. If you rush to get under that ball and catch it and try to return it, and you get absolutely annihilated because you had no time, there's potential for injuries, fumbles. There's a lot of factors there that could be negative. And I know that's a negative mindset, but also if you're out of position and you're struggling to get there to that ball, and then you try and call a fair catch and then catch it and you fumble it, you've also then taken a risk. So sometimes it looks awful when they play the percentages and think, I'm going to let that go. Hopefully it goes in the end zone and we'll have we'll start from, was it 25, 30? They're playing the percentages to avoid injury, to avoid fumbles, because at the end of the day, what actually happened isn't that different to them calling a fair catch and just catching it. But in your defense, his judgment on when to make that call has been extremely poor, and that has infuriated people. But the thinking is sound, but he's applied it badly, and that pulls us back to the fact that we have a specialist returner on our team that is making bad decisions and is taking up a spot. That's where
as someone who's played a game which means I need to kick and catch balls in rugby. Firstly, these punters in the league, and we saw it from the 49ers punter, they are specialists in that position. They will kick a ball, and where you think it's going to go out, if they kick it the right way or have backspin where it will come back in play, you need to account for that. Secondly, the fact that D. Williams is so far in front of the ball in order to catch it is a worry, because he should be starting further back and running onto the spot where the ball is. The fact that he's overshooting the ball and then allowing it to go behind him every single time is worrisome. He had one job. I'll say that's his job, but yet he's choosing to do it wrong.
I think anyone who, like that, though. Pardon? I think that's tactically set up like that. He puts himself in a position. I think he's put in a position where he can catch it, and if it's a fair catch, we start from the 15 or 20. If it goes over his head, the odds are it goes into the end zone and we get a touchback. And if he can catch it and run, he's got a good starting position for us to start 40 onwards. I think they're playing the numbers and they're getting him to start. They're positioning him so that a fair catch or a return for 10 yards or whatever they're trying to play. I think they're trying to be clever, and they've put him in there because there's no way he's been allowed to make that mistake so many times and them not coach it out of him. Like, because what you said is completely accurate. If you're trying to avoid that situation, I think they're trying to play the percentages and they're putting him in that situation, and he's become a lightning rod for this criticism.
I think he has, but I think it's warranted. I'm just going to say, from someone who's had to coach fullbacks in rugby, start further back. If you need to start in the end zone, run onto the ball. If you can then see that ball is going to go and bounce by looking at the ball and looking at the spin of the ball, then you leave it, let it go, or you run onto it and then you run, or call the fair catch. He's not doing either of those. Anyway, I'm going to move on to the next part. I don't want to take up too much time on special teams because they are special teams, special players. Not such special moments at the moment. Did Spoon back down? So this is my general view of Spoon through the last few games. He has been a non-entity. I'll catch some flack for that. He hasn't had the same impact on the game that he's had last season, especially. He's put in the occasional good hit, or he's made a textbook tackle around the legs and starts flexing. I'm like, well done. That's what you're supposed to do. You've not knocked someone off their feet. But yesterday there was an occasion with Deebo where Deebo Samuel caught a pass and was tackled. And this was just before Debo went off holding his hand. Debo got up, got in Spoon's face, and Spoon appeared to back down from that man challenge, where he seemed to do the all right, calm down, whereas he is labelled as the biggest trash talker on the team. And I've not seen that aggression, that in your face mentality. And yesterday, that interaction with Debo kind of proved what I'm sort of saying there. He seemed to back down from it. I don't know if it's a confidence issue, if he's worried about drawing penalties or what, but it really irks me to watch. Well, I'll open the floor to this one, guys.
I think it's because of his history with being too exuberant and too in your face. He's been told, or he's had a conversation, and they've said to him, look, we want you to smash people, we want that, but once the play's over, it ends. And I think that play was over. There's no need. Yeah, Debo gets in your face, whatever, who cares? I don't care. I used to play rugby as well. People come out and get in your face, whatever. We'll have a conversation about that the next time you have the ball. Until then, go away. I'm not interested. I don't want to give up field position through being baited. And I think in the past, I think Spoon has let that get to him sometimes, and it's caught him out. And I think the coaches, this is what I think. This is what I feel. And that's why he suddenly realised, hold on a minute, this is going a bit too far. Let's back off. And I think he did the right thing. Just walk away.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up Jonas's point here, and then I'm gonna spin off it because he kind of agrees with me, I think. So Jonas has said he seems to be missing his aggressiveness, and I think there has been a word with him. If you look back at the first 3 games, even though we won them, we were all moaning about flags and discipline. And that has been an underlying issue with Spoon since he entered the league, that he makes a few silly mistakes, silly flags at bad times, stopping us getting off the field, etc. Unnecessary stuff. I wonder whether he struggles to carry that sort of aggressive edge without having the extracurricular stuff as well. A bit like DK. DK he picks a fight, he gets himself in the zone by firing himself up. I wonder whether Spoon does that. That's all part of it. And maybe removing that and speaking to him and telling him to rein it in a bit and not do the extra stuff. Maybe that's affected him with his hitting and his competitiveness. Maybe there's a line for him to sort of find in between where he is now and where he was last year, where the discipline's better and he's still an absolute competitor and a barking dog, because he's always been that, and that's one of the things we like.
Let's pull this one up from Bryce. The offense doesn't seem to have an alpha anymore. I thought Spoon was going to be there, and I completely agree. I think it's now got to a point where I would take a game riddled with penalties that we win, as opposed to a soft game with limited penalties that we lose. I've said it multiple times. I want a team that people are scared to catch a ball near, run near. I want them to be nasty. I want them to be efficient. I want them to score points and put the fear of God into people that they come up against. We don't have that at the moment. Spoon's lost his bite at the moment, whether it's a matter of they're trying to bring his mentality in check or whatever. That isn't Spoon. Let him play aggressive, let him play hard, let him get in people's faces. If you do it enough, and Gary's said, being an ex-rugby player as well, it only takes so much for someone else to snap. Every team in every sport, look at ice hockey, they've got their enforcers, because the enforcers will just go and bang people to the point where no one wants to skate near them. Football, you had we're talking about Man United, Roy Keane. People did not want to go near where he was on the field, because if he tackled you, we're not going to talk about the tackle, where there's a very graphic photo that you can search on Google. You know, people don't want to go near it. Spoon had that potential, and it seems like we're trying to rein that in now to stop the penalties. And when we had those penalties, we were winning. We were an aggressive team. I think it's that the balancing act, but they've overbalanced. The scales have tipped, where they've made him too timid with it now. We don't see the big bangs coming in. Like we said before the season, I was going to have a section called Here Comes the Boom. I was anticipating every single week that was going to be Spoon. Not this year at all. Before we move on to your ones, Mitch, let's have a look what else we got. That's exactly, he seems to be missing his aggressiveness. Bryce, the defense doesn't seem to have an alpha. We've done that one. And Bryce, again, the LOB Super Bowl teams used to be most penalized teams during their era. Yes, there were moments, but they had swagger. We need that little swagger. And I think that's true. I think that's the thing we're missing. Less about my stuff anyway. Mitch, you've got some fantastic points here, sir. Let's get on to
I can't wait. Fundamentals missing. There is a baseline of there's a baseline expectation for certain players, not necessarily based on the talent level they have, but the level that they're playing at. DK Metcalf was never renowned as a great route runner, but he has improved a lot there. Last night, the routes he was running were not they were not crisp, they were not as practiced, they were not as predictable. Geno had less time, he was under pressure all the time. And am I surprised to see interceptions with balls being overthrown? Not particularly. Those fundamentals are missing. There's fundamentals on special teams that are not good enough. We've seen repeated fumbling over the last few weeks. We're losing turnover battles, which are another symptom of not doing things right. Because with the turnover battle, not only are you not winning the ball back, you're also giving it away to your opponents. And this is a game of territory. Giving up territory in these sort of not unforced errors, because some of them are punched out or great interceptions or whatnot. But we are gifting teams opportunities in games based on not having a good foundation of good quality football. They are bad patches in good games at times. Last night was a bad game with bad fundamentals, with some bright spots, but not enough of them. So I really want to see for the rest of the season, and I know that's a lot to ask, but I don't think it should be, the fundamentals being reinforced, the foundation of a good football team being built as priority number one. Because I can't I'm going to, but my mental state is not going to stand up well to watching shoddy quality football in Seattle, because we've always done things to a level and we've always had a culture that demanded that.
It's fine, but we can do a pod where it's just me and you in the corner of our room rocking back and forth.
Rocking.
Single solitary emo tears about our team.
Like, genuinely might only be one game away. Yeah.
Garry, I'll let you go for this one first, mate, and then I'll come in because I've got something I need to say about this as well.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I mean, fundamentals is the basics that you need to do right. It makes such a difference. An example, I will quote the most successful sporting team in history with their winning percentage. I think it's something like 80%. Is the New Zealand All Blacks rugby union team, and what they preach and what they do the best, better than anyone else, is fundamentals. You put the fundamentals together. They don't necessarily have the best players. They've always got very good players. They don't necessarily have the best players, but they just do everything.
That's why.
Yeah, freaky people. But they just do the fundamentals so consistently well, and that's what it is. If you can do the fundamentals consistently well, you're going to be in 99% of the games without even having to do anything else.
Yeah, agreed. It's we're talking about fundamentals, right? So if we're going to go fundamentals, we have been told time and time again they practice tackling every week, every session. Yesterday, this morning, whatever time zone you're in, I witnessed Jerome Baker tackle with his face 3 times. The first time, I thought he was going to be out with concussion. The second time, I thought he just tackled him with his face mask. The third time, I just drew the conclusion, oh no, he just can't tackle properly. He's too upright. He's not actually bending his levers. This is something that Bryce and I will talk about on one of our coach speak pods. It just seems shoddy. It seems panicky. It's something that's not been bred into a team where if we're under the cosh, we don't resort back to what the fundamentals teach us. Like you say about the All Blacks, you can tell when they are under the cosh, when people are beating them, they'll strip it all the way back to the very, very basic. And it works because then they get to reset and build from there. We hit the panic button and the fundamentals go out the window. Well, that's the fundamentals of route running, tackling, of blocking, everything. The fundamentals of just, I think this is what happens when you go on a 3-game losing streak. The panic sets in with young coaching staff, with younger players, and we don't know how to win it or how to bring it back. I think it just needs to be someone, the calm head, which Mike should be, to say, bring it back down, take it back to its basis form, make it easy for ourselves and go from there. Right, Mitch, your next one.
God. Well,
turnovers and sacks.
This kind of it kind of just rolls off the back of the other. But since week 3, turnovers and sacks just aren't happening, and a lot of this is based off one thing: not being able to stop the run. If the ball's not flying through the air, most of your opportunity to turn the ball over goes, unless the running back doesn't work with good ball security. There's a reason why fourth quarter of games, teams that are in a winning position keep running the ball. One, it keeps the clock churning, that's obvious, but there's less chance of turnovers, which are needed for the other team to turn the game around. So as long as we can't stop the run, turnovers are going to be hard to come by. And with us chasing the game, we are then going to create our own turnovers. Hence the situation we've been in where, we've been losing 3-1 or 3-0 on the turnover battle. The sacks then also struggle because if the quarterback's not having to hold the ball very long, because he's handing the ball off a lot, the opportunity for sacks go. And if you can't set the edge properly, which comes back to fundamentals, the sacks become hard to get as well. So genuinely, we're losing out both sides of the ball on those two factors, again, due to fundamentals for me.
Agreed. Move on to your next one. That's an observation. What a talking point. Hopefully the chat will be on this one as well. Veteran free agents almost all flopped.
Yeah, and I want to make the point that this is not just about this game. There have been some free agents that we picked up this season that looked good when we were beating an understrength Denver Broncos team and an understrength Patriots team, etc. But when we come to the actual acid test of a good contender like the Lions, like the San Francisco 49ers, players have wilted. And in fact, some of those players struggled even in those games. We were baying for blood with Laken Tomlinson in game 1. But he hasn't improved an awful lot since either. You've just mentioned Baker. On that note, on Baker, by the way, tackling with his face, at least he plays with a neck roll. It's obvious. It's happened enough times that he supports his neck. He supports that neck going into those tackles.
No spinal injuries for me, sir.
But also, just to go back to that as well, actually, in American football, they used to be taught to put your head on the player's chest when you're tackling. Not anymore.
Start me, Gary. Honestly,
but it's true.
The tackle technique
drives me nuts as well. Don't worry.
Oh, anyone that's watching, thank you very much, everyone that's joining us either on X or YouTube. So I'm just going to go a little quick rant as well from a rugby coach who's been playing since he was 9, and I'm 40 now. The way tackling is taught in American football is dangerous. Mitch has probably been waiting for tackling to come up because he knows I'll go off on a little rant.
There's a reason I didn't cover that in my fundamentals. I've left it. I've
Unlucky.
left it here for you.
Thanks, Gary. You're coming back more often. But yeah, the way you're taught to tackle in American football is dangerous for the neck, the spine, the concussion, everything. If you put your head in front of a player, you are going to get injured. So the way we teach it on a fundamental basis, they go, Mitch, I'll bring it back to what you were saying earlier, fundamentals. If you're going to tackle, you go cheek to cheek. If you are running in, if someone's running, say, down the sideline, and you are coming in from the side, in rugby, we put our head behind someone's butt, and then we wrap around the front to then slide down, take the legs, unless you've taken them away that way. In American football, the reason the neck roll becomes so prominent as well, or used to be, until people realised it wasn't fashionable and they'd rather risk their spinal health, you put your head in front and then wrap around the back. Now, hopefully anyone watching this can see how that is dangerous, because all it's going to take is for someone, imagine tackling a Derrick Henry like that at full tilt. Your neck, your head is going to be on a 90-degree angle. You're going to look like something like Death Becomes Her. You know, anyone who's old enough will probably get that reference. If not, we'll say Beetlejuice or whatever else is fashionable nowadays. And there's spinal cord injuries, there's concussion. It's going to take one knee, you are done. It is my biggest bugbear, and it's something I'll discuss on an offshoot pod at some point, because it's something that I think needs to change. Seattle tried to change it by bringing in Waseli Serevi, the Sevens legend from Fiji, who was never known for his tackling, but could teach the fundamentals of rugby tackling. Anyway, sorry, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, because I will go on for like 20 minutes. And Mitch, I can see you're like, oh, he's done it again. Gary, why did you do this? Carry on. I'm just going to sit here and have a rum.
Gary, did you want to add anything about the veterans there, or?
No, with the veterans, I agree. I mean, it's just, I'm not quite sure what they were trying to achieve this year, but whatever it was, they haven't really done it. Really, the only person I think, well, you could probably say two, Connor Williams, bearing in mind that he's coming back from, major surgery. I think he's performed well so far. Not at the level that we were hoping, but again, is that because of the two guys either side of him not performing well, and he's then sort of like, who do I help this on this play?
On yesterday's pod.
He's got to make that choice virtually every snap of the ball. Who needs my help? But I think he's been good. Yeah, he's been good. I think Dodson's been, pretty good. But the others, up and down. Not really, done anything, that we were hoping for. That's for sure.
On the subject of Dodson, here's something that I find interesting. When we picked up Dodson and Baker, I had Baker as our middle linebacker and Dodson as the guy we'd see in coverage a lot. But we're blitzing Dodson a lot and expecting Baker to cover tight ends, and move out to the flats and take, that's the opposite way around to what I thought we were going to see. And I'm not saying that I'm smarter than Mike Mack when it comes to putting his defensive pieces where they need to be, but that's not what I envisaged, and it doesn't look like it works particularly well. But is what it is.
I think with those two, just very quickly, I think it's the looking at, it's the, I don't say best of a bad bunch, because they've both got their merits. Baker was fantastic on the blitz playing for the Dolphins, but Dodson equally can play that blitz as well. And I think he's misjudged it, like you said. I think it should be the flip reverse of it. It should be Baker hitting the gaps and Dodson hitting coverage. it's just
at least more often than not. You don't want to commit too much either way, because then it becomes predictable. But I do think the majority of I mean, Dodson's done excellent work blitzing. I will say that, but I think it's left Baker to do an awful lot of covering, which has been subpar. He's good in the tackle after the catch, Baker. He's very, very often there immediately after the catch, but I'd rather have someone in there competing for that ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my 2 pence on that. There's a number of other free agents we could go into, honestly, but one other actually that I will mention who has done well. You mentioned Connor Williams. I think Jonathan Hankins has been has been decent. I know we said we struggled stopping the run, but Jonathan Hankins has been pretty good for me.
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed. Go on. The 12th and final point, Mr. Mitchell.
The Niners are mortal. Hurrah. It was said in our Discord, I think, that it might have been actually in the comments. I can't remember. I read it earlier. That they are now past their peak. The stars that they're paying a lot of money to, with void years and all sorts of other black cat magic. Those players are aging. They're oft injured. They are now a declining force. They showed that last night, and we shot ourselves in the foot repeatedly in different phases of the game. For my money, we should have won that game last night if we played just marginally better than we did. But it's nice to see that the Niners are a beatable force. What do you reckon, Gary?
No, I agree. It'd be interesting when we play them game later on in the season. I would just wonder where this team will be. I'm hoping that there'll be less injuries, and then obviously more consistent as well. And we'll start to see things develop, is what I'm hoping. It might still be a bit early before we can challenge the 49ers, but as you say, they are definitely there for the taking now. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we won that second half last night. We were massively behind in the first half. We came out and we won the second half. So we've gone toe to toe with them and came out winning in that second half. However, that first half we crumbled under the lights, under the pressure. We were not good enough in our own stadium. So they look beatable. Other teams have showed that this year. What turned up and played in the Pacific Northwest yesterday was not a Niner team that I recognise. It doesn't look like a behemoth anymore. They're still very well coached. They're still very talented. They are just not the behemoth that they have been in recent years, and that is great news for our division, I think.
Apologies for my daughter.
That's all right. I've just been saying that the Niners seem to have moved past their peak. Their best players are injury prone, and they are paid an awful lot of money, and it is the beginning of the decline.
Yeah, completely agree. Couple of comments that we'll throw in, and then we'll move on to our Discord member musings. We are running a longer pod because there's a lot that needs to be talked about. So let's go with Bryce. We need to discuss this, Josh, because it's changed a lot on the amateur level now. That's regarding the tackling. Rugby tackling is now the base for coaching tackling now in American football. If that is the case, I am more than happy with that. Everything now in football at youth level going up is to take the head out of play. If only that was the case in the professional game. And then we've got Jonas. Purdy is making $930K a year. Imagine having to pay him in 2025. Do you know what? Based on yesterday, I can imagine them paying him. I don't think he's going to get top tier money, but he's going to be closer. He's going to be, a good sort
40,
of 40 grand.
Yeah, 40 to 42, maybe, I think would be my prediction.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Right, so before we get to our Discord member musings, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be back in less than a minute.
Let's give a big shout out to our sponsor, Wraith Energy. Wraith is a sugar-free energy drink that comes in these handy-dandy little sachets that you've not got to take in a huge can away with you. Simply mix it with half a litre of water, give it a good shake, and you are ready to go. It is sugar-free. It has all the benefits of pretty much every energy drink you'll have, apart from the fact it doesn't cost you a fortune, and they're very, very honest with what they have in there. You have taurine, caffeine, multiple vitamins, no sugar. And for any of you who try sugar-free energy drinks, usually you'll know they're not the best. Wraith, however, I have tried the majority of the flavors now, and I love every single one. If you want to try Wraith, go to wraithEnergy.com, and when you're going to check out, use code 12TALK for 10% off. You'll thank us later.